Kit Kats Can Read. Hello and good evening everybody, my name is Katie and today I'm bringing you my September wrap-up video. So for the month of September I managed to read a total of 12 books, which is absolutely fantastic. Every month I always aim for duplicate figures, so 10 books minimum, and to read more is fantastic, especially despite being busy. I had work and I'm so proud of myself because I'm also a very slow reader, so I'm really proud of my achievement for the month of September. In regards to my TBR pile for the month of September, I actually did a pretty damn good job of sticking to that TBR pile without messing it up too much. Like, I know some booktubers that they set themselves a TBR pile for the month and then they don't even end up reading those books. They mess them around so much because that's just what happens with like new releases and stuff. But I try my best to stick as much to the pile as I could, and I did a pretty damn good job. I think I only swapped 2 books around, and that was Made for You, I swapped for Don't Touch, and I swapped The Sea of Tranquility for The Infinite Sea. So actually I did a pretty damn good job of that TBR pile, so I'm really proud of myself for sticking to it. So I'm just going to show you the books that I read, give you a brief summary, what I thought, and a rating. If I've done a written review of this on my blog, it will be linked in the description box below, but I will tell you if I have done one for the specific book. So the first book that I read in September was Falling Into Place by Amy Zhang. Now this was very kindly sent to me from Harbour 360 to review, and I'm so grateful because this book was just amazing. Oh my god, it was just a really beautiful tearjerker, really short chapters actually. I flew through this book. It's a really great contemporary, very interesting main protagonist. I was literally guessing throughout the whole book. I wanted to know who was telling the story, and when you find out, I was like, wow, that was a really interesting way to tell the story. It was just really good. So this is about a girl called Liz Emerson, and she has a car accident, and so throughout this book you are sort of discovering why she had a car accident, you know, what led her to crash her car, the people around her, and just how it affected them as well as the main person. This book switches from past to future, which is what I liked about it, and it also contains friendship and love. I really enjoyed this book, so that's why I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The link to my Falling Into Place review will be in the description box below. The next book that I completed in September was The 100 by Cass Morgan, and yes, this is the book that's to the TV show, which I'm completely obsessed with. Please comment down below, let me know if you're obsessed with this TV show just as much as I am. Oh my gosh. And I just love the TV show so much. So I got really inspired to read the book. I was like, yes, I'm going to read the book because I need more. Now this is really interesting because there are certain similarities and differences, but of course it is a book to TV show adaptation. It's like Vampire Diaries. There are some similarities and a lot of differences, and with this book there's quite a lot of similarities, like with the main storyline. However, there are things that are different, like with characters. There are some characters that are in this book, there are some characters that aren't, and the same vice versa with the TV show. And some similar events happen, like between the characters, but because there are different characters, some things don't really happen in the book and the TV show, so it's really just interesting. Now this is very clear who is actually telling the sort of story, not from like their point of view, but like from around them. It will go to a flashback, something to do with them, and you know, they will go about like how they're thinking and what they're doing, and it's just really interesting. So you learn about each of the characters and like what they go through, and it just goes back to the present as well, like what they're doing and how they're dealing with the situation. So it's really cool, and I totally ship Bellamy and Clark, and I love this book because just those 2 characters are awesome. So if you don't know what the storyline is about, basically 100 juveniles are sent to the Earth. These are children, and they are basically landing there to see if the Earth is safe for the rest of the people to live on. So they're basically the first people that are going to land because they believe that radiation is sort of still there, so they're kind of being the first people to sort of test it out. And so all of these kids land, and it's just about what they discover and like how they deal with things, what they find out, how they cope with each other, and how they deal with survival and stuff. And it's really really interesting and very, very addictive. Personally, I really enjoyed the flashbacks and learning about all the characters and everything that goes on, and yeah, it's really cool, and I cannot wait to continue on with the next book in the series, which I do own, and I can't wait to just carry on straight with this book. So I loved it, and that's why I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I did a review on this, so it will be linked in the description box below if you want to check more on my thoughts. The next book that I completed was The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Finally, I've had this book for well over a year. It's quite short. I don't know why it's taken me so long to get around to reading it, but I wanted to read it before the movie, but I ended up watching the movie whilst reading the book at the same time, and actually the movie kind of inspired me to read more, because at first I was just a bit slow getting into it and I didn't know if it was going to get any better and stuff. And yeah, I watched the movie and I really enjoyed the movie, and I probably enjoyed the movie just as much as the book, to be honest, because it's really good. It's a great coming of age story and it's just beautiful, and you really actually see Charlie develop into such a better person. So for those of you that don't know what this book is about, this is about a boy called Charlie, and he is a very shy person. He's kind of like a geek, and this is just a story about him sort of developing into a completely different person, like adventuring into certain things and like into romance and first dates and everything, and just developing friends and all that, and it's just really cool. I love the friends that he makes, as you can see on the front cover here. They are awesome, and just as they're all together, they suit each other. Like, their personalities are amazing, and it's a really beautiful story. So in the end, I gave this book 4.5 stars out of 5. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Iron Trial by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black, two very famous authors, especially in the booktube world. Cassandra Clare is the authors of the Mortal Instruments series and the Infernal Devices trilogy, and Holly Black is an author of many books, including like The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, Doll Bones, which I haven't read, and I really want to venture into more of Holly Black's books, definitely. The Iron Trial is a middle grade story. It's got fantasy in it, and the synopsis does sound very much like Harry Potter, and that really annoyed me, how so many people are like, oh my god, this book is just going to be like Harry Potter, I'm not going to read it because of that. When I went into this book, not once did I see anything that was very similar to Harry Potter, so I was just like, literally just don't judge the book before you've read it, because it's nothing like Harry Potter whatsoever. Sure, the main character's a boy and he has a girl that's a friend and a guy that's a friend, and of course there's magic and an old guy, but you know, that is literally all. Nothing, like none of the events are very similar, and it's just a really interesting take on magic. It's completely different, and I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and so that is why I gave this book 4 stars. So The Iron Trial is about this boy, and he does this trial and he ends up failing it, and basically all of these mages, they end up picking the students who they want to train, and he ends up being one of the ones that are picked, and everyone's like, why was he picked? Because he completely failed, he was useless, but this guy just has complete faith in him, and so he has him to be a student, and so they do all of these tasks, and it's really fun, and there's just a mystery that's going on, and it's really interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that is why I gave this book 4 stars out of 5, and I did a written review in this, and it will be linked in the description box below. The next book that I read was After the End by Amy Plum, and I had an ebook of this for review, but I never got around to reading it, and so I bought the audiobook of this to listen to in my car because I thought it sounded really interesting. I love the cover to it. It gives off a very dystopian sort of feel, and I actually kind of really enjoyed this book. It was really interesting. So this book is told from alternate perspectives. You have a girl and a guy, and the girl basically loses her friends, and so she goes on a quest with her husky dogs to go and find her friends, and she is quite an interesting character. Now the boy, he fails at school, and he wants to basically show his dad that he can be capable of doing something, so he learns that his dad is looking for this girl, so he goes on an adventure to try and find this girl for his dad, and so they meet, and obviously little do they know, they do eventually get along with each other and end up going on this task with each other and end up discovering so many things together, and they make a really great team, and I actually really enjoyed the story. It was just really interesting, like everything that turned up and stuff, and I really enjoyed it because this is a first book that is probably going to be be in either a series or a trilogy. It's very, very enjoyable, and this is by Amy Plum. I haven't read her Die For Me trilogy. I do really want to. I do own all of them, in fact, and now that I've read this book by her, I definitely want to. So yeah, it's definitely really enjoyable. I completely recommend it, and that is why I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I completed was Legend by Marie Lu. Finally, I've had this book for quite a while as well, and I don't know why it's taken me so long to read this book, but I finally got around to reading it because I had a massive urge to read it, and I'm so glad that I did, because I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was so good. It was really fast paced and just kept me on my toes, and I needed more. So I definitely want to get Prodigy, because I want to continue on with this, because I've just heard fantastic things about this trilogy in general. So I want to continue on with it and to complete this trilogy. But yeah, this book was so good. So for those of you that don't know what Legend is about, though, I will be highly surprised. This is about a girl called June, and her brother is murdered, and so she goes on an adventure to try and find out who was the murderer, and little does she know that she meets the other main protagonist, who is a guy called Day. They get along pretty well until she discovers that he may be the one who murdered her brother, and that's when shit literally goes down. It's just really interesting, and I liked it when they met, and I liked it when they ventured together, and it's really interesting, and I need the next book now. So I really enjoyed this book, completely recommend it, and that's why I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I completed was The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey. This is the sequel to The Fifth Wave. Now, with The Fifth Wave, I found it to be an okay story. I didn't quite get along with the hype as well as everybody else was. I was like, I just don't get why people really enjoy this book. It's an okay story. And I know I was actually among a few people that did think that. So I pre-ordered this book on a whim. I was like, I love the cover to this book, I just want to see what happens next. And I didn't actually realise it's quite a shorter book compared to The Fifth Wave, so it's really interesting. Now, I actually enjoyed this sequel. I really enjoyed it, honestly, and that's why I gave this 4.5 stars out of 5. I just thought it's really interesting, and definitely very well paced. And just so much happened. The beginning was fantastic. Straight away, just something happened, and I was like, wow, that is how you start a book. And it's really cool. But I don't really want to go into this synopsis very fully in case you haven't read The Fifth Wave. So I honestly suggest you check out The Fifth Wave, which is a dystopian sort of apocalyptic novel that is about aliens invading the world, and there are like waves of aliens, and obviously the fifth wave being the fifth wave, and the main character Cassie, she is like pretty much one of the last survivors of the humans, and so it's all about her and her survival and how she sort of goes around and stuff, and how she meets an alien, and it's really interesting. But yeah, I definitely recommend you pick up the first book and then definitely pick up this one, because I really enjoyed it. It's really good. And then I completed an ebook, which is Day 21 by Cass Morgan. This is the sequel to The 100, and I enjoyed this book just as much as I did with the first book. It's just really enjoyable, again with the same characters doing basically the same things, like you get to see what they do, flashbacks again, so you learn even more about them and more stuff that happens, and it's really interesting, and I really enjoy the sequel. And where this book ends is pretty much where season 1 ends in the TV show, so that's really good. So it kind of filters in a way so that when season 2 premieres, we won't have to wait too long, because we've got the books to sort of fill the void and all that jazz. Day 21 basically carries on exactly where the first book left. There is a romance, an action, and a cliffhanger ending, and I need more of this series. I need more of this series. I need more. I cannot get enough of it. It's literally like a drug to me. I need more. So of course I love this book, and that is why I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. A review of Day 21 will be linked down in the description box below for you to check more out on my thoughts. And then I completed Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, and oh my god, why have I waited so long to read the sequel to The Throne of Glass? I have no idea, because I really love The Throne of Glass, and I gave that 5 out of 5 stars, and I just love this book just as much. And yeah, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars as well. It's really good, just full of so much action. It's very fast paced, a big old fantasy that is just amazing. There is romance in it, definitely adventure, betrayal, friendship, and it's just amazing. And I love the prince just as much as I love Chaol. And Celaena Sardothien, she is just an amazing female protagonist. She is just badass and just, she's so brave, and I loved it. And you just learn so many secrets and mysteries in this book, and it's awesome. But I don't really want to go into too much detail again with this book because this is a sequel as well. But all I can say is it carries on from the first book, obviously, and this one she is given some lists of people that she needs to assassinate, and so she does that. But it's awesome, it's really, really good. I loved it so much. So yes, 5 out of 5 stars, definitely worth it. If you haven't picked this series up, then you definitely need to. Honestly, don't even wait for all the books to be released, because you're seriously missing out on everything that is purely awesome. Sarah J Maas is fantastic with her writing, and she is amazing, and she is awesome. So you just need to pick up her books to support this author and read her books, like right now. I did a review on my blog of this book, and it will be linked in the description box below. The next book that I completed was Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler, and the art is by Myra Kalman. That person also deserves a name because the pictures inside this book are beautiful. So yes, there are images that go with the story throughout the book, which is amazing. This is actually quite a heavy book, believe it or not, and it's a very, very short, quick, light contemporary. Now, from the title, you think this is probably going to be a very depressing sort of book because it's about a breakup, but not once really in this book did I feel completely depressed at all. In fact, a lot of the time I was actually smiling because you go through the reasons and like why this person probably wasn't the best of people to be with, and you know, certain things that it did. But this general storyline is about this girl, and she's sort of writing this big old letter that goes with a box of stuff that's to do with this breakup. So she talks about something that's in the box, and she's sort of like, for example, this bottle cap, and then she'll tell a story about the bottle cap, and then she'll end it be like, and that is why we broke up. And then it would just go on like that. So it's just, it was really, really, really interesting. I liked it, and the end result of this book, it made me smile. I'm not gonna lie, I smiled at the end of this book. It made me sort of feel really happy and sort of satisfied with the ending. So I really liked the story in general. It's a very, very interesting book. I really liked it, and that's why I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The 11th book that I completed in the month of September was Don't Touch by Rachel M. Wilson. This beautiful hardback that I received, and oh my god, I had an ebook of this to review, and I was like, I just want to buy the physical copy of this book purely because I just love the synopsis of it. It sounds really fascinating. I actually watched the book trailer to this, and I will link that in the description box below if you want to check the book trailer out of it, and that is what kind of sold it for me as well. It was just really, really interesting. Now, the basic premise of this book is about this girl, and she has this OCD thing about not touching people, and the reason being, she's got this thing in her head that if she touches people then her dad won't come home because her parents are split up, and it's just sunk in, and it's literally taken over her life, and it's just become a complete burden. So when she comes across this guy at her performing arts school that she really, really likes, she cannot touch him in any way, even though she likes him and she wants to touch him, but she can't. And she has really, really awesome friends that she meets, and they really, really support her in this problem, and that's why I liked it. It's really, really big on friendship, this book. It's really good, and just really big on OCD, and only the slightest touch of romance, really. Like, I didn't feel whatsoever that this book had like insta love or that the romance took over the story. I found it really, really interesting, and I love this book. It literally touched me right here in my heart. It's a really, really great contemporary novel, and I loved it so, so much. So that is why I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. And the final book that I completed in the month of September was not this beast of a book. No way would I be able to complete all of this at the end of September. But no, I completed one of these books, and it's the first book in the His Dark Materials trilogy. I have owned this beast of a bind-up for so many years, literally over 10 years. I got it when I was a child. My mum actually got it for me. It's probably one of the most expensive books I've got. I think it's about £25. Yes, it is £25. So yeah, it's massive. You can tell by the yellow pages how old it is as well. But I really like this trilogy so much. Now I'm trying to remember everything that happened because I listened to the BBC audiobooks when I was younger. I listened to them on tape whilst I went to sleep, and Audible now have them on their website. So with my credits I got the trilogy and I'm just starting to listen to them again. So I completed Northern Lights, which is the first book, and yeah, I really enjoyed Northern Lights. It's really interesting. It's got demons in it. Humans have demons, and there's this woman called Mrs. Coulter, and she is stealing children away. And so Lyra goes on this adventure. She's got this alethiometer, which is this picture right here on the front, which is like a symbol reader that tells the truth, and she has to protect that because her father gave it to her, and her father is a prisoner somewhere, so he's gone away somewhere. And Lyra, she meets up with so many other characters along her adventure and tries to find where these missing children have gone, and it's just really interesting. I love the concept of demons. It's a very great fantasy young adult trilogy actually. I really enjoyed it, but I don't really remember the second and third book, so it's just nice to refresh my memory on this all over again. So yeah, I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And that concludes this wrap up, guys. Please let me know down in the comment box below if you've read any of these or if you'd be interested in any of them. Be sure to check out my reviews, which will be linked in the description box below if you want to know about some of my thoughts in more thorough detail. But let me know how you did in the month of September. Did you do really well? If you have done a wrap up video, link it in the comments below and I'll be sure to check it out because I love watching what people have read and I like discovering new booktubers as well. And if you've done a TBR video, link it down as well because now's the time to watch these sort of videos, and I love doing it so much. So yeah, and also let me know what you're reading because I always like to know what everyone is reading too. But I hope you have enjoyed this video all the same. Just keep smiling, keep reading and be happy. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm eternally grateful, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!